A few nights ago, I hosted a game night for a small group of friends. We had all been quarantining and following the proper guidelines in my county. It was only going to be 5 of us, including me, but one of my friends texted me last minute that she was going to bring a coworker from work, Matt, fake name. Fine with me. We started playing a card game where you answer questions about yourself based on the level 1, 2, 3. The question could be extremely surface level, X, what's your favorite color? To something deeper, X, what characteristic of yourself do you not like about yourself? Everyone was enjoying themselves, and I was happy with the way things were going. To a question I drew, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to go through? Some backstory. My sister passed away a few years ago when I was still in high school. I was pulled out of class and flew immediately to her college and watched her die in the intensive care unit. Needless to say, this is probably the hardest thing I've been through. 3 of my friends in the group knew about this, the other 2 and Matt did not. I didn't want to bring the mood down, so I answered that the hardest thing I'd been through was transitioning, going to a college in a different state where I knew no one. We were all ready to move on, but Matt immediately piped up and said, "Wow, if that's the hardest thing you've ever been through, you live an extremely privileged life." Everyone got quiet. Now, if he had said it jokingly, I probably would have let it go and moved on. However, the way he said it was in a very condescending and patronizing tone, and I will admit, it rubbed me the wrong way. Instead of letting it go, I said, well, the hardest thing I've ever been through is seeing my sister die in the intensive care unit and having to watch her being lowered into her grave when I was 17. I just didn't want to bring the mood down. If things were quiet before, they were dead silent now. Matt mumbled an apology, but game night ended shortly after. After my friends all left, my friend who had brought Matt texted me and told me I was a jerk for making Matt look bad, and I could have just let his statement go. I do feel bad about what I said and being the cause of game night ending so soon, but I also feel like I was just making a justified statement. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. I really don't understand how OP is an idiot or everyone's the idiot here. OP responded truthfully and not even harsh, just honest. If Matt didn't want to look like an idiot, maybe he shouldn't have been an idiot. OP's honest response is similar to when women are asked when they'll have children or why they don't have children, and the woman says something like, "I'm infertile," or "I've been trying for years and I've had multiple miscarriages." People really put their foot in their mouth and then blame the other person for calling them out. Not the idiot. And here's the thing, even if transitioning to college was the hardest thing you've experienced, that's still incredibly rude of Matt to respond in such a way. Sure, there are harder things, obviously. And you've experienced them. But Matt was an idiot to invalidating a potentially hard experience. I mean, my transition to college included severe depression and suicidal thoughts, but I wouldn't have said that. I too would have said transitioning to college in a different state where I knew no one instead of the whole story. Also, I'm very sorry for your loss. Not the idiot, he's an idiot, but I do think you misjudged the reaction a little. He immediately apologized, so it seems likely he didn't intend for his comment to come across as it did. He's obviously freaked up and regretted it. On your part, I think you could have achieved the same aim by saying, well, I have had much worse things happen, but I didn't want to bring the mood down. Totally get why you responded as you did though. The game freaking screws, especially to play with someone you barely know. My 34 late fiancée passed away from brain tumor 3 years ago. I had known her most of my life, we grew up together and were engaged for 2 years. We wanted to get married sooner, but she got sick and never recovered after that, despite doing all we could to fight this god-awful disease. My late fiancée had a diary that I gifted her right after she was diagnosed. She was the type that'd get very emotional and would have a difficulty expressing her feelings and opening up about her issues. She was very thankful I brought her the diary, and she told me I was the only one who really understood what she needed and how she felt. I'd see her spending a lot of time writing in her diary, whether at the hospital or at home. I never read it while she was alive, but she let me have it a week before she passed away. I had a hard time looking at it, and I left it untouched for over a year after her death. That's when I started reading it. I brought it up in therapy and it helped me tremendously. I don't have much of her stuff, but I still have her diary with me. I'm now engaged to my fiancée, who I met via a mutual friend, and she was wonderful when I met her. My current fiancée and I are open to each other. We talk about what bothers us all the time, but at the same time there are things that I'd rather not share nor talk about. I'm getting better at communicating, but I'm taking my time. My current fiancé knows about my late fiancé's diary. Despite her asking to see it, and I have no idea why she'd want that, but I made it clear that I have no intentions on sharing what's in it with her. It's not like it's a secret, but I know my late fiancé would want me to keep it that way. My fiancé kept bringing it up, knowing how uncomfortable that made me feel. And yesterday I got home and found out that she took the diary and read it. I was absolutely pissed she didn't even deny it. Even tried to argue with me about why I was lashing out at her. Even though she disrespected my boundaries. She even refused to acknowledge that couples should have personal boundaries. I yelled at her for being so inconsiderate and for touching the diary in the first place. She got upset that I reacted like this and refused to talk to me for hours. She's currently staying at her friend's house, saying that I was being harsh on her. Not the idiot. For her to not respect your boundaries by putting her own need to read something private above your wishes to keep it private, in my opinion, should be an engagement dealbreaker. What other boundaries will she dance across, since clearly your needs and wants to don't matter to her? In addition to that, she's blaming you for being harsh with her. That means she is taking no blame in this at all. That's deflection. Good luck with whatever you decide to do, but know that should you stay with her, this is just the beginning of her disrespect. I'm concerned that it's only been 3 years since the death of your fiancé that you had known most of your life. I'm hoping you had time to grieve and mourn. I'm worried that you've chosen to date and get engaged in such a short time to someone that is clearly not healthy. Her behaviors, ignoring boundaries, mad at you for her actions, lack of guilt for clearly inappropriate acting, are not those of someone that is mature enough to be married and definitively not good for your long-term mental health. You're not the idiot. Not the idiot. This is more than a breach of personal boundaries, it is a deep and pointed violation of your emotions. You have used the diary while going to therapy to help you recover from the loss of someone extremely dear to you, and her diary was her recording of her feelings for you and you alone. But your fiancé was so callous as to just take the diary and then read all of those personal thoughts and feelings, especially after you expressly told her no. There aren't words for how horrified I am by this act on her part. I, 18, have 3 siblings, 17, 15, 14. My mom has never been involved in our lives. She was around sometimes, and when my dad passed 5 years ago, she was almost unbothered and continued to live her life. A year later, she married an old friend of my dad's. Together, they went on all sorts of trips, made plans with just them, and my siblings and I were at my grandparents' house almost every day. A few times my mom cared to be around us was when she wanted to take family pictures to post online. Because of my mom being absent, my sisters relied on me to teach them about their periods, and I gave them the talk as well. I've been discussed those things nearly 2 or 3 years ago and did my best to explain everything I knew at 16, and it seemed to have done the job. But since quarantine, my mom has been forced to stay at home, and she pouted about it the first few months. Around July last year, she found out my youngest sister was having periods, and she got annoyed she wasn't the first to know. My sister has been having them for over 2 years. Lately, my mom has been trying to talk to my sisters and offer them motherly advice, as she calls it. She's had no success, but still pushes it almost daily. Last night, my sister was having a really off day and went to bed earlier than normal. My mom kept bothering her and telling her it was too early to sleep. It was 9 p.m, and my sister blew up at her and told her to basically piss off. She came downstairs where my brother and I were at, and she started going on how she blamed my dad for making us choose him as the favorite parent, and if it weren't for him, she'd have a better relationship with us. That much ticked me off, because she chose to live some child-free lifestyle rather than be around us. She kept going how she missed so many milestones in our lives, like my sisters getting their first period or my brother getting his first girlfriend. Not once did she try to acknowledge she was the main reason she missed those things. Here's where I feel like an idiot. I blew up at her, completely lost it. I told her she needed not to blame my dead dad, and if she wanted to know the real reason she missed out, she should look in the mirror. She started crying and said I'm making her look like a bad mother. I ended it with she should feel like a bad mother because she is one. I've since felt awful for what I said, and I think I might have been too hard on her. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It's not even valid to blame your father. Like, it doesn't even make sense, since he passed away 5 years ago. All the major milestones happened after that. If she wanted to be present, she would've. Quarantine showed her she was a crappy mom, and she couldn't come to terms with it. So instead of trying to build a proper relationship and getting to know her children, she's giving unsolicited advice. She was searching for validation of her feeling, but couldn't find it because there was none. Not the idiot. You did not even stoop to insults or name calling, just the facts. She is the one that checked herself out of the family, not you. She is most likely looking for any excuse for her behavior that places her in a better light. It was harsh, but needed. Just make sure you and your siblings are safe in case she tries to pull something. She is most likely going to lash out after this or try and guilt trip you about being a cruel daughter and that she is trying so hard. Just keep being a good sister to your siblings and hold your ground. Not the idiot. That is a lot less than what you could have said. And it sounds like she needs at least that as a clear fact to make her understand the truth and take responsibility. And if she won't change, apologize or take responsibility, at least you've been kind enough to explain why she's not going to get sympathy, and you've actually saved her from continuing to further alienate you all and make the relationship even worse by spouting nonsense that offends you all. You did her a favor. I dated Paul on and off for about 3 years. We broke up amicably. We didn't have enough in common, just making love and physical attraction, proximity, and still text or send photos or joke around. Paul is now with Jenny, and I love them together. They have so much in common, they literally look like they should be together, etc. Also, if it helps, I'm married. Happily. I was taking pictures for my job and posting them on Instagram of some new products we had in my shop, a clothing store. He commented on a specific sweater and said he'd love a sweater like that and asked if I could send him details. It's a low production item, so I sent him a link and told him to act fast. I guess it's what he asked from Jenny for Christmas, and she said to me she couldn't afford it. I felt so bad and decided I'd use my discount on the sweater and send it to Jenny so she could give it to him. I asked for her address and sent it out to her, adding a note saying it was nice to meet her and also if she wanted stuff from the shop to let me know and I'd use my discount for her too. Well, she blew up in a bad way. She was so upset she called me all kinds of names, suggested I wasn't over him. Again, I'm married, I'm trying to look better than her, objectively, she's way hotter than I am, she's a hot blonde with Serena van der Woodsen hair, etc. I felt awful and apologized for whatever it was I did, but she blocked me on her and his devices. I was trying to do a nice thing. Did I screw up? My husband thinks I was just trying to do something nice. He and my ex get along and send memes to each other, but a few friends have said I crossed boundaries and tried to look like an angel. I'm gonna go with you are the idiot. Sure, from your point of view you're just trying to do a nice thing, and that's lovely of you. But from her point of view, it's out of bounds to pay for an entire gift for him, especially when you're the ex-girlfriend. It doesn't matter that you sent it to her to give. I think a lot of people would be offended by it. It's more a gift from you than it is from her because she didn't get to contribute anything. I think offering her a discount would have been fine, but you're obviously not friends, so it's definitely crossing a line to pay for the whole thing. Everyone's the idiot here. She overreacted and should have calmly spoken to you about her misgivings. Also, she shouldn't block you on her boyfriend's devices, as that's his decision. That being said, you didn't represent her as a crazy person before the gift giving, so I wonder if this action was the straw that broke the camel's back. Sure, it was a nice gesture on the surface, but there are 2 problems here. 1. You should have offered to help her with a gift but let her decide. 2. You're really close to this other couple. Yes, exes can be friends, but they also need room apart to grow. Soft, you are the idiot. It's great you have a great relationship with your ex, however this isn't the norm, like at all. I think and hope your heart was in the right place, but to be honest, I'd probably feel a little miffed too if my significant other's ex was sending him gifts, and I would expect my SO to be upset if I sent gifts to my ex. And the only reason I'd send anything to my ex was to let him know that even if I've moved on, I'm still the best he's ever had, so don't forget it. It would be all about one-upping the current just because I can. My 21 boyfriend, Alex, 23, absolutely love Halloween. Our whole friend group loves the holiday and we make a point to have a Halloween party every year. We're sad that we can't have our usual party this year, but we're still planning on having a little Halloween party thing on Zoom, so we still have an excuse to dress up and get drunk together. Anyway, our friend Sasha has been dating a guy, let's call him David, for about a year now. We don't have many complaints about David, he's pleasant enough to us, excluding a couple of slightly harsh comments which he apologized for after he found out Alex and I were a couple, and, most importantly, he makes Sasha happy. However, when we were talking about costumes on call the other day, things got a little weird. Our friend group consists of 5 girls and 3 guys. We're all pretty big American Horror Story fans, and the girls all decided that they were going to go as the witches from Coven. Their costumes are absolutely stunning. Alex and I are planning on dressing as Michael Langdon and Mr. Gallant. Anyways, we asked David about his costume, and he told us he'd actually planned for the 3 of us to go as Ross, Joey and Chandler from Friends. Now, I love me some Friends, but Alex and I have already bought most of the pieces for our costumes, and we don't really want to change it at this point. We told him as much and apologized. If he'd asked us earlier, then we'd have most likely agreed to this. He left the chat about 10 minutes later, but nothing really seemed off. Until he texted me later in the day. He told me that he was uncomfortable with us going as Michael and Gallant, as they often get shipped together and are most likely fairies. David told us he was uncomfortable with us flaunting our bodies at every chance we got, and that it was making him uncomfortable. We apparently ruined Harry Potter for him when we dressed up as Remus and Sirius last year. Anyway, David is still insistent on us changing our costume. We've also been accused of trying to isolate him, as he isn't too into American Horror Story. He can dress up as literally anything he wants, there's no rules. I really don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, and I don't want David to feel like he's unwelcome, but Alex and I were really excited about our costumes this year. I know this seems like a stupid thing to be worried about, but we don't want to cause trouble for Sasha as she really likes David, and we don't want her getting caught in the middle of some stupid argument over a goddamn Halloween costume. I'd feel awful if we were the reason that they started to have problems in their relationship. Would I be the idiot? Not the idiot. If he's uncomfortable with 2 characters possibly being gay, that's his problem. Chandler, Ross and Joey costumes just sound like 3 men in generic outfits to me, so not sure what the excitement there would be. Maybe you could dress up with a loose-fitting shirt for Chandler, but other than that, and seriously, if he had plans for you 3 he should have said. He's an idiot for trying to make you change your costumes just because he can't get over his own prejudges. Not the idiot. You and your boyfriend have every right to dress however you like, you owe him nothing, especially since his plan for you guys wasn't shared to you until after you decided on what you were gonna do. Also, he sounds like the kind of person you guys should try to avoid. I mean, his referring to you all as fairies and going so far as to say you're in Harry Potter are more than enough to say he's not the kind of person you all want in your lives. Don't listen to him, you all do your own thing, and he can grow up and freaking deal with it. Remus and Sirius is an amazing duo. I kinda want to read a whole book about them. But on another note, not the idiot, I think he's definitely petty and wants to force you to change your costumes because he doesn't have a better idea. Or maybe he wants to be included with your group costumes but is going about it all wrong. Perhaps you can suggest a costume from American Horror Story for him to join in your matching costume group and see if he's okay with that. Either way, Halloween costumes aren't real life, so he needs to chill.